All right. Good evening, everyone. Irish Hammer here with you for Week 16 college football. That's going to spill over a little bit into the first week of bowl season. So, kind of a big umbrella there operating under tonight. Joshy Boy was scheduled and thought to be able to join us. He is not going to be able to do that tonight. So, unfortunately, we will miss out on Josh this week. Should be back next week, and we should be back on Wednesday, regularly scheduled time. I had a work emergency 911 situation yesterday that took 15 hours, so was not able to jump on last night as usual. However, we're a day late, hopefully not a dollar short, and appreciate everybody tuning in on Thursday. Be sure to hang around. I know it's a little late, but for the East Coast folks, but at 9:30 Central, the Heavy Pour Sports Border podcast will be on. Rando, T-Step, Selena, and of course, I'll be there to maintain reason and order, as I always do. So a quick look back at conference championship week, kind of so-so. Went 3-4-2, not great on the college side. The NFL side, however, went 7-3-2, so total for 10-7-4 last week. Did have a couple nice little parlay and teaser plays come in and cash out. Had a couple pushes on both sides, NFL and college. I think both of those were totals, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me, there was just one on the NFL side. So anyway, still ended up being a pretty good profit margin week. Just missed out on a few of those college straights because, man, that was kind of a goofy end to the season before the CFP kicks off, which we'll get to in a little bit. Did want to touch on the games at hand. We do have two on Saturday. We've got Army-Navy, which is always just a phenomenal game. I always watch it. My dad spent a long time in the Navy, and so that game's kind of near and dear to my heart. It's always a good game, competitive game. The spread, the records, everything, you can throw those out the window because time and time again we've seen underdogs come in and win this game. And maybe a little bit of that to be expected this time around as well. What's up, T? Spread is 6.5. The total is 38.5, which is pretty low, but a lot of times this game does have a low total, low projection, low scoring. But I think this year may go against the grain. We all know Bo Horvath, the offense that Navy runs is pretty high powered, but their defense is kind of suspect. When Navy has struggled in games and lost games, it's definitely been the defensive side of the ball. And they've been in some higher scoring games with teams that really they should have been able to put away, I think. And you know Army's going to give everything that they have. Well, both these teams will, because these guys play for the name on the front of the jersey, not the one on the back. And just to celebrate, their commitment, service to our country, need to support these guys. Watch this game, but I am Navy through and through. It's how I was raised. My brother-in-law was in the Navy. My nephew went to the Citadel in the Navy program. Mentioned my dad. Got a couple cousins that went to flight school, became naval aviators. Everything in my family's Navy. So it really pains me to give this prediction, but I think Army plus 6.5 here is the play. And I think it's because Navy's defense is going to give up some plays. I think like we said to start off with, this game will be highly competitive. This is bragging rights, probably above and beyond any other college football game bragging rights. I know we've got some great matchups with, the game, the Iron Bowl, the Egg Bowl, all kinds of great rivalries, traditions in college football, but nobody plays harder for pride for their team than these two. So I think it's going to be over, which is unusual. Usually I take under on this game, and usually I take Navy in this game. So I'm flipping the whole script here. I just think this is going to be. I think this is going to be a tough ask for Navy this year. Might even drop a little bit on Army money line outright. It's a pretty good payout. I think it's plus 230, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I think Army's live in this game, and Army's 8-3-1 as underdog in this game over the last however many years it is. So kind of like an Army in this one. And then the other game we have is Washington and Boise State in, was it the LA Bowl? I mean, I don't even know, man. Josh and I are going to go do a full bowl run through next week. We're going to do it tonight. I'm not going to do it because I want him involved in that. But there are some goofy bowls out there this year. And I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth later, but I think we're going to start to see some of these kind of shrink. And I'll get to it and tell you why I think that in a minute. But whatever bowl this is, I think it's the LA Bowl, is Washington and Boise. And, man, I'm just going to be honest. I think it's going to be a lot of points in this game. I don't think either defense is going to do a whole lot to slow the other down. So 52.5, that's too low, in my opinion. I think Washington wins this game. I think Washington probably wins this game handily. 9.5 is kind of a lot of points for a bowl game where we probably aren't fully aware of who's actually going to play or not. So kind of staying away from sides on this one. But there's going to be some points. Both these offenses can cook. Boise kind of, went in the funk middle of the season because Masden went out. Well, he's back. He came back last week, and they picked up right where he left off. So I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of scoring. So just give me over 52.5. I think that's the best play in this game. Washington 9.5. If you're feeling froggy, I kind of think that's the right side, but not going to get involved there. And then Tuesday, we're going to have Troy and Jacksonville State. Troy minus 2.5 in this game, which initially was a little bit of a surprise because, Jack State has been pretty dominant in their conference. But Troy showed up big time in the conference championship game and had a pretty nice close to the end of the season. So I actually like Troy in this game, getting under a field goal at minus 2.5. I'm impressed with what I've seen defensively. They're a lot better than what some of the numbers show. And I think these guys want to close out their season. I think Jack State kind of had their big moment to close out against Kennesaw State last week. So I think this is kind of Troy's chance to put a bow on the season. So give me the Trojans at minus 2.5. And then on Wednesday night, we're going to have South Florida and Old Dominion lock up. And again, I like the total here. I like the over 53.5. Both these offenses can get going. USF very dynamic on offense. Had a string of 40-plus point games. Pulled off some pretty big wins earlier in the season. And Old Dominion quietly is very strong on offense. So really think both these teams will be able to put up some points on the board as well. There's also the Louisiana-Delaware game. I kind of like Delaware in this one, getting 3.5. Anything over 3. I kind of like the Blue Hens, but I also like the under in this game at 59.5. I think that's a lot of points, especially for a bowl game. I don't see the number. I don't see the number getting there. And Delaware's played well on defense. ULA has played well on offense, and I've seen them both struggle. Again, not 100% certain who all is going to be in this game if we're looking at normal starters. But I just think this game gets to 60 points. That's a lot to ask. So I'm taking under the 59.5. And I like Delaware to cover the hook on a 3-point line. And then Thursday, we should cover this game Wednesday in the show, but I'll go and throw it out there. That's Missouri State against the Fighting Lyle Joneses of Arkansas State. Pretty high total in this one, too, at 56.5. I like the under here as well. I know I've got a couple overs with Washington, South Florida, Old Dominion, but these are pretty good offenses. Boise, Washington can put up the points. We've seen what South Florida could cover 53.5 by themselves. We've seen them do it this year. So those I'm not worried about. But some of these smaller matchups like this, there's no way. There's no way we're going to see this many points. So I like the under there with Missouri State and Arkansas State. So that's that real quick. We'll get to the NFL in a minute, but I kind of wanted to look at the college football rankings. I almost jumped on Sunday evening or Monday and kind of talked through some of this, and I'm sure you probably heard a ton about it. You had your own reaction. It came out Sunday, right before the NFL slate kicked off. And maybe to some degree it's been talked to death, but I haven't yet, so I'm going to do it. So I don't think there was any surprise when the ranking came out with Indiana moving ahead of Ohio State with, the head-to-head win. Obviously, Ohio State missed a field goal late. Tennessee fans can relate to missing out on a missed field goal. Won't go there. But I definitely think that ranking was correct. So no argument with Indiana 1, Ohio State 2. Georgia looked like Georgia. Probably one of their best games on defense all season. Absolutely put the clamps on the Bammers. Very dominant win by the Dogs. So feel like that's right. And then the 4th seed and the 4th bye goes to Texas Tech. And this is a team that I've been very high on all year. Go all the way back to the summer when we were talking about conference winners, and Texas Tech was brought up a couple times. And that train is probably going to keep rolling based on the amount of NIL money that they have at their disposal. We're going to see Texas Tech, a major player, probably in at least men's basketball, football, probably baseball. They're very well funded, and they're very well coached. This team's the defense is absolutely stifling. It looks more like a Kirby Smart defense than it does a Big 12 defense because, the joke was always a Big 12, they don't play any defense. Well, this Texas Tech team plays defense as good as anybody in the country. They are right there with Ohio State and quite frankly, Indiana. So much has been made about Fernando Mendoza and the offense and, the amount of points that Indiana has put on teams throughout the course of the season. I don't think their defense has gotten enough credit. This is a very good defense that Indiana's putting out there. So all 4 of the top seeds, great defenses. Georgia, I know not so much throughout the course of the year, but collectively, body of work, we know this is a Kirby Smart defense is going to play well. And, the old adage, offense sells tickets. defense wins championships. Take a look at your bracket, and it's all right there for you. Sorry, I thought I shared this screen. Let me see if I can get this pulled up. Most of you are probably looking at this on the phone anyway, and that's okay. But if you can see it, follow the bouncing ball. All right, so once we got I think everybody thought this is probably what it was going to look like. There wasn't much argument that could be made for any of the other teams outside of these four. It was just a matter of what order was it going to look like, and I think it fell into place the way that most of us thought it would. So I'm at the grocery store, okay, on Sunday when this is being announced. So I'm walking around the grocery store pushing the buggy, because that's what we call it here in the South, is a buggy. Watching my phone, I bumped into I don't know how many end caps and displays and stuff like that, but hey, more important matters at hand. So I tried to kind of guess and play along as this went. So the number 5 team we found out was Oregon, and I think that's rightful based on everybody else in there. Had Texas A&M not stubbed their toe, I think they would have been in the argument for one of those first round buys. It would have come down, I think, to Texas A&M and Texas Tech, because had A&M won that game, they would have been in the conference championship game versus Georgia instead of Alabama. And the committee said at the beginning of the season, we're not going to punish teams that lose their conference championship games. Come back to that in a minute. So anyway, Oregon comes in at number 5. Then Ole Miss jumped up at 6. So I guess the Florida State rule doesn't apply to Ole Miss, because we all know with Florida State being left out after going undefeated and winning their conference championship game, get left out of the playoff a few years ago because Jordan Travis was injured. And their own ruling, own verbiage about a significant player or coach leaving or being injured, I don't know how much more of a significant coach there is to a team than Lane Kiffin was to Ole Miss. Yet here we are. So not only did they put Ole Miss in, they put Ole Miss in ahead of Texas A&M, which make the argument either way. I thought A&M should have been there. It certainly would have been a more favorable matchup for A&M based on how this thing played out. But nevertheless, here we are. Ole Miss at 6, A&M at 7. And then we've got Oklahoma and Alabama coming in at 8 and 9. So the SEC with the 3rd, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th seeds in the CFB bracket. So then we get to 10, and this is where the selection heard around the world, I guess is the best way to put this, because everybody was sitting there expecting Notre Dame's name to be called out, right? Nope. It was Miami coming in at the number 10 spot. So the ACC needs to reevaluate their tiebreaker. And granted, yes, I know Duke won that game, but there was no way that Duke was going to get in the playoff with 5 losses. That's absurd. And the fact that Duke was even in the conference championship game over Miami to begin with is just egregious. So ACC, I hope you get your crap together and fix that, because that was embarrassing on your part. And then the commissioner of the ACC said before the game that I can't see a scenario where the ACC champion doesn't go to the playoff. Well, it ain't the first time it's happened, homie. You didn't get Florida State in, and they went undefeated. So very surprised here, although I don't disagree. I feel like Miami should have been over Notre Dame. They played a much more difficult schedule. And Notre Dame didn't really start gaining steam till middle of the season, which kind of coincides with the level of talent that they play. So, and then of course we've heard the belly aching and the whining and the crying and the taking my ball and going home with the athletic director. Then the team they opt out of playing in a bowl game. No, we don't want to play in a bowl game. Just like some little spoiled brat, petulant child. Oh, well, we didn't get our way, so we're not going to play your game. Well, and then the AD is criticizing the ACC because they felt like the ACC was championing Miami to get in over Notre Dame. Well, here, newsflash, buddy. Miami is a member, full-fledged member of the ACC. Every sport. Why wouldn't the ACC champion to get their team, their school, into the playoff over you, who send all the club sports to play in the ACC, but you're holding out of joining a conference in football because you're greedy fucks? I hope nobody schedules you going forward. I hope you're stuck with the service academies, with if USC wants to keep playing you, fine, because they're going to suck again here pretty soon. Stanford, nobody cares. And I hope you have to go play FCS schools, and I hope you have to go play Group of 5 schools. I hope no Power 4 school will put you on their schedule until you join a conference, because it's ridiculous. I saw on Twitter somebody had put out that how much power that Notre Dame has, and all this just speaks to how powerful they are and how much money everybody's going to stand to lose with Notre Dame not being involved. Man, I mean, honestly, the only people that care about Notre Dame, or the only impact Notre Dame is going to have, is going to be on NBC and the people in South Bend. I promise you, this playoff will not lose viewership because Notre Dame's not in it. You're not all that. There's plenty of TV money out there for everybody. You've got NBC locked up. Good for you. Enjoy it. Enjoy playing a bunch of Group of 5s, because I think there's there's a little smoke going about this. I think there'll be some fire catch with this. Some people think that Notre Dame shouldn't even be allowed in the college football playoff because they don't have a conference. They don't play a conference championship game. I could care less. In, out, doesn't matter to me. But stop the bullshit about how Notre Dame this, Notre Dame that. Join a damn conference. You're not entitled to anything. And this little setup you've got on the back pages of the college football playoff agreement, that if you're in the top 12 every year, you're guaranteed a spot. Well, again, I hope no Power 4 team will schedule you until you get in a conference, just for that reason, because that's ridiculous too. All right, that's my Notre Dame rant. And then to wrap up the 12, Tulane and James Madison, the 2 Group of 5s. So Miami gets in over Notre Dame. They're first out. The second team out was BYU. Now, we've already seen Notre Dame whining and crying. The Peabody people, Clark Lee spent the entire week lobbying and campaigning and begging. give us another game. We'll play anybody on championship Saturday just so we can show that we belong in this playoff. No. You had 12 games, just like everybody else did. You couldn't beat Alabama, and you couldn't beat Texas. Those were your opportunities to show that you belonged. You didn't win those games. Peabody folks saying that they belonged and they should be included. Let me just, and I tried to tell you people this days and even weeks heading into the selection. You were never in the conversation to start with. You were never getting into this bracket, into this tournament. So I don't know what y'all are pissing and moaning and whining and crying about either. The best season in the history of your program, and you're still not good enough to get in an expanded 12-team playoff. You will always be Peabody. You can say, oh, it's because of, yeah, and part of that's probably true. It's probably because of your history. Here's the other thing. Your own stadium doesn't fill up without the help of whoever you're playing. You're not good for TV. You're not good for travel. You're not good for brand. You're not good for sponsorships. Nobody gives a shit about you. Okay? Outside of whoever graduated from there and a few of you losers in and around Nashville that just jumped on Peabody's back because they actually got good at something athletically, nobody cares. Nobody wants to see Vanderbilt football on TV. Nobody ever has. So stop the nonsense. You were never part of the conversation. You were never going to be in this field. If anybody has a legitimate gripe and complaint about not being in this bracket, it is BYU. Here's why. They only lost 2 games all year, one in the regular season, and they lost conference championship Saturday. Both of those losses were to the number 4 team, Texas Tech. Here's another example of the CFB committee punishing a team that played in and lost their conference championship, because there is no way in hell that either Tulane or James Madison belong in over BYU. They're going to get boat raced in their opening game. Absolutely trounced. And you're going to see why they don't belong in this playoff. Oregon, if they're healthy and that offense is clicking, they'll drop 50 on James Madison. And look, I have been a fan of and a backer of James Madison all season. You can go back and look at any weeks of the show, and you'll see and hear me talking up how good this James Madison team is. And they are, but in their little world, yes. Against the number 5 team in the country, against Oregon, against a Dan Lanning coached team, it's not going to be pretty. I'll have to go back and look at the date. Give me just a moment here. Oh, come on. Sorry, my computer's being slow. Try a different one. So let's go back to September 20th of this year. when Tulane traveled to the Grove in Oxford and got beat by 35. Ole Miss won 45-10 against Tulane on September 20th. And you're going to tell me that Tulane's going to make a return trip and it's going to look any different? Nope. I promise you, everybody's all up in arms over Lane Kiffin and all his drama and stuff and whatever, fine. And it's probably not over based on what happened yesterday in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There's going to be some more dominoes fall, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'll leave it at that. I'm not trying to do any conspiracy theory, anything like that. I just think there's going to be some more dominoes fall before it's all said and done. So if anybody in this field has got something to prove, it's Ole Miss. Their coach left them high and dry to go to a bitter rival in conference. If we were still in the old division days, a division opponent. And now some people think that, oh, well, Ole Miss isn't going to be the same because they don't have Lane. These boys got something to prove. They got a chip on their shoulder, and they would love nothing more than to make a deep run in this playoff just to show old Lane up. But unfortunately, it won't show him up anything because LSU was stupid enough to honor his bonus structure that Ole Miss had. So every time Ole Miss wins a game in this playoff, Lane gets a bonus, which I think that's incredibly stupid. But we are talking about LSU and the nonsense that's going on there. And apparently they just, piss money or something because they're paid a ridiculous amount of money to have Brian Kelly not come to work. Then they paid off Lane's buyout and then gave him a ridiculous amount of money. So apparently it's no big deal to them, but whatever. I hope Ole Miss, I hope they do go on a run. If I'm pulling for anybody here, I'm going to pull for Ole Miss in this deal just because of the whole situation that they were put in. I still like Texas Tech too. And then, of course, we've got Alabama, Oklahoma, little rematch there. And, man, I said this a few weeks ago and thought maybe with the Alabama-Georgia history, and I did. I picked Bama last week. That was one of my ugly, embarrassing, hate to come on here and say this, losses, but it was. Everything pointed to Alabama with the history and all. Man, Georgia snapped that big time. There's something broken with this Alabama offense. And I just don't think Jam Miller being out was that impactful. It's not the same offense that we saw the bulk of the season. I don't know what's going on with Simpson, but there's definitely something disjointed with this Alabama team. And we know firsthand how tough this Oklahoma defense is. The offense has struggled mightily. They struggled without Mateer, and quite frankly, they've struggled with Mateer since he's come back. But this defense is good enough to keep them in games, create turnovers. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a tough road for Alabama having to go into Norman and play a rematch. And then touched on this a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. A&M and Miami. This is a terrible matchup for A&M. I've loved their offense all year long, ridden them to the bank quite often. This is not a good matchup. And I know Carson Beck, and everybody loves to hate on him. The dude's got some experience playing in some big games. And Kyle Field is as rowdy as they get outside of Neyland. So it's a tough environment. But this is kind of a veteran group. And I think style-wise, matchup-wise, I think Miami can give Texas A&M problems. So deep dive a little bit more into that this week. On next week, I will definitely have a strong lean / prediction bet that I'll make. But matchup-wise, it's not great. I think A&M got they probably, of everybody that's playing, I think they probably got the worst end of it, where they could have fallen. They probably should have been in the 7 hole, or excuse me, the 6 hole. Ole Miss should have been at 7, I thought anyway. And Tulane would have definitely been an easier road than having to face the Canes. But nevertheless, there we are. So I just don't think that these group of 5 teams have any hope of winning either of these 2 games. We already seen Ole Miss pulverize Tulane, and JMU's used to being the bully. They're not going to bully this Oregon either side of the ball, offense or defensive line. This is going to be some big boy football, and they're gonna face a pretty tough a pretty tough road. So my kind of out of this group, I was looking for maybe a dark horse candidate or where I thought the first upset was going to be. Then I planned to kind of go over what I thought the Final Four was going to look like and maybe who would be in the championship game, ultimately who can win this thing. I'm going to save all that for next week so I can get Josh on and have him give his thoughts and his takes on that as well. But I will say this, from the first round, if there's a team I think that can go deep in this playoff, I think it probably is Ole Miss. I think they would have the best shot of upsetting in the second round because Oregon, Texas Tech, I just think this Texas Tech defense is going to take them a long way in this tournament. I'll say that. I don't think it matters who wins the Alabama-Oklahoma game. Indiana is just as good on defense as they are on offense. And we saw them just absolutely cripple the Ohio State offense Saturday. So I don't know that Alabama or Oklahoma they certainly won't be favored in that game. And having a hard time seeing either of those two beating Indiana. I think Ole Miss can play with Georgia, both sides of the ball. Trinidad Chambliss is phenomenal, and I think their defense is good enough to kind of hold Georgia in check. And then Texas A&M, I think, would definitely be the better matchup against Ohio State because I think style-wise, I think they have a better chance against Ohio State than Miami does, but I'm not sold on A&M getting out of the first round. I'll talk to more about that later next week, But and I don't think Miami matches up with Ohio State very well. So there's kind of that. And then out of the what would be the second round, if I had a dark horse, I definitely think Texas Tech is live in this thing. Their defense can play with anybody, and it'll just be a matter of can the offense do enough because the offense has sputtered a little bit for a couple games kind of midway through towards the back half of the season. So we have seen a little bit of sputter out of that offense, but that defense will absolutely give them a shot against anybody. So I think it's a really good setup, and it's going to be some really good games over the course of the coming weeks. But obviously the first round games next Friday, Saturday will set the table for what it's going to look like going forward in the quarters, the semis, and then the championship. So it's going to be fun. Let's see. So I did want to run down some NFL real quick. I should have threw this out there before I got rolling on college, and I apologize. I do like Tampa tonight. I think Atlanta's kind of messed up and broken. They still can't figure out how to use Bijan Robinson. They've lost 7 of their last 8, and they have to travel to Tampa. And for the first time all season, you're going to have Mike Evans, Emeka Ibuka, Chris Godwin, Bucky Irving all on the field together. The first time all year that this has happened. So Baker is going to have his full complement of weapons. And I just don't see Atlanta putting up much resistance against the offense. And then I think Kirk Cousins is going to have his hands full with the front 7 of Tampa. If he gets time, he can probably find some guys open. He's not going to have Drake London. And when Kyle Pitts is your best receiving option, you're probably going to have some issues. So unless they can get their run game going with Algier and Bijan, I think it's going to be a long night for the Falcons in Tampa. Right now, about 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. Tampa is on the move at the Atlanta 38, but there's no score. I like Tampa at the -6.5 is what I played. So I do like the Bucks in this game. Looking ahead at some other games that I really like in or for Sunday slate this week. We got the Bills and the Patriots. It's in Foxborough. The Patriots sitting at the helm in the AFC East at 10 wins. I kind of lean in Buffalo in this one. Haven't bet it yet, but I know the Bills got their issues with at receiver, and I know this Patriots defense has been really good. I just think Buffalo's getting hot at the right time, and they look like they were going to get rolled by the Bengals last week. And Cincinnati's defense was actually playing some pretty good ball the first half of that game. And then, like he's done time and time before, Josh Allen turns his hat around backwards. He takes a big old swig and says, "Hold my beer." And then here they come. So Josh Allen is in kind of rarefied air right now in that they have run this division for so long. They're not used to looking up to see the team. They're usually looking down at the teams. So I think they're going to come into Foxborough and play maybe one of their best games all season. And I think they get this win. They are a slight favorite on FanDuel, -1.5. New England at +1.5 has a little bit of juice, -115, but that tells me that Vegas doesn't really know either. So I'm taking the Bills in this one. The Chiefs and the Chargers are going to lock up in Kansas City. Another 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock game, depending on where you are. Chiefs are laying 5.5 points in this game. I know it's desperation time for the Chiefs. I think mathematically they're still alive, so they probably will play as such. But there'd have to be a lot of chaos to happen for them to get in the playoffs. And the Chargers have kind of had a lot of injuries over the last few weeks. Herbert's playing with that broken hand that he had surgery on, non-throwing hand, but still he had a fumble last week. So I think they were able to gut that out, win that game. Now they got to go to Kansas City this is I'm having trouble getting behind the Chiefs in anything. Last year they won, was it 9 games by one possession? And this year all those have come back and kind of bit them in the ass. They're not winning those games. I think this is another one of those games. This defense that the Chargers have is good enough to stifle what little bit of run game the Chiefs have. I think they can kind of get Mahomes a little uncomfortable. And I think the Chargers are going to be able to, we've got Omarion Hampton back. Kamani Vidal has been stellar while Hampton's been out. And Herbert's only going to get healthier with that hand as time goes. So I kind of like the Chargers outright here. I definitely like them getting 5.5 points. The Ravens and the Bengals are going to lock up in Cincinnati. And, man, I'm going to tell you, the Ravens have just plummeted. And I know Lamar being hurt, we kind of expected that. But they have not been good with him. I don't know if they realize this or not, but they've got a 245-pound beast at running back. His name's Derrick Henry. Maybe somebody in Baltimore can introduce him to John Harbaugh. They're not running the football. And Lamar has been below average in passing this year. He's just not right. So the Bengals are underdogs in this game. I don't see it. Give me the Bengals outright. Screw the points. I'll take Cincinnati at money line plus 124. The Niners will host the Titans. This one's up to 12.5 now. I've got it in a teaser. I don't know if I can touch 12.5, even though I think that's probably definitely what's going to happen in this game. But man, that's a lot of points for an NFL game, and I don't think I can get on board with that many points. But this is a great play to put in a teaser. Get that number down. I like it enough that I wouldn't put the Titans in a teaser and get more points. I think San Francisco legitimately will beat the shit out of them. I just can't lay money on 12.5 in an NFL game. It's just too many points. But the Niners will definitely be the side there. Also love the Rams against the Lions. Game is at SoFi. Of course, it's the whole Matt Stafford versus Jared Goff, the trade, all that stuff. Man, let me tell you something. This Rams, and I hate them. I'm a Niners fan, those of you that may not know. I hate the Rams. But I got to call an ace here. This defense is monstrous. They are going to harass Jared Goff. They've got some injuries on the offensive line. They've got some injuries in the secondary. And that spells disaster playing against the Rams. So Matt Stafford right now is playing at MVP level. Everybody was concerned about him, his back, and coming into the season. He's 39, blah, 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 all this stuff. None of it mattered. Matt Stafford's just come in and probably playing his way into an MVP, for this season. So 5.5, 6.5, Rams are going to win this game, and I think they're going to win this game pretty handily. I would also look at the over. It's at 54.5 right now. If that scares you a little bit, here's a great play. Take the Niners, take the Rams, take that total, and take the Seahawks, who are playing the Colts. I'll get to that in a minute. Just trust me on this. Take those 4 teams, throw them in a teaser, 6 point, 7 point, 10 point, whatever teaser, and drop some money on that. I think that's going to be a smart play. I've already got it in that very bet, so it's a good way to take advantage of some good odds without a lot of risk, and you can kind of go a little heavier on the bet. I'm not a big advocate for parlays. Love teasers, though, because it gives you a little bit of that wiggle room, especially on totals. Panthers are going to play at the Saints. Love the Saints in this spot. Tyler Shugg has been very impressive. Did not expect to see, with all the quarterback issues that New Orleans had coming into the season, I thought they and Cleveland were kind of fighting for who's got the suckiest quarterback room. Well, Tyler Shugg and company have proven that they're not absolutely just terrible. Alvin Kamara has been kind of dinged up all year, in and out. Devin Neal, the rookie running backs, come in, played extremely well. Olave's had a big year. So, and the defense, man, the last few games, they have been on fire. I know Carolina's kind of the darling right now because they've been on this, this win streak and competitive and right there with the Bucks for the division. I'll take the Saints. Again, forget the points. Give me the Saints outright in this game, plus 136. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it's going to be typical Panthers-Saints game, and I think New Orleans gets this one. I think they pull this out. So give me New Orleans at home, money line, outright win over the Panthers. Big game between Green Bay and Denver. Two very good defenses, two division leaders. Two, I won't say MVP candidates because I don't know that either of those guys they're probably plus 1,200 or higher. But two pretty good quarterbacks that are really good fits for their team. And Green Bay's got to go into Denver, which it's always a tough place to play. And we've seen Denver look awful ugly, and then all of a sudden Bo Nix works magic and they pull out a win. I don't think they do this week. This Green Bay defense is absolutely legit. This Green Bay offense can cook. Denver offensively, they're hit or miss. Defense is sound, solid. I think this is another lower scoring game. The total's 42.5. I think that's dangerously close to where this game's probably going to end up. So I'll stay off that total. But the Packers are favored by 2.5. That's less than a field goal. I think they go into Denver and get the win. So I'm taking Green Bay minus the 2.5 against Denver. Touched on it. Going to explain it. So we all know Daniel Jones tore an Achilles, out for the season, for most of next season. So that left the Colts with Riley Leonard, the former Duke and crybaby Notre Dame quarterback, and Brett Rippon, the only two quarterbacks on the roster. And Rippon was on the practice squad. Anthony Richardson is nowhere to be found. So the Colts thought, well, we need a quarterback, so our best option is to go get 44-year-old grandpa Phillip Rivers. And I've kind of kept an ear to the ground on this, and apparently they are practicing as if Phillip Rivers is going to start this game. So you're telling me that you are going to start at quarterback a guy that's not been on the field in 4 years, is 44 years old, has not played a snap of football. He's been coaching his son. Admirable. Love it. I love Phillip Rivers. He's from just up the road from where I am right now. So all the respect in the world for him and his family, everything. But this is business, and I don't pull punches when it's business. You're telling me that if it is Phillip Rivers, I don't care who it is, but you're telling me if it's Phillip Rivers, you're going to go play in one of the toughest environments in the NFL, one of the loudest stadiums, against one of the best defenses in the National Football League in the Seattle Seahawks. This is insane. There is no way that Phillip Rivers would be stepping on the field for me if I'm Shane Steichen to take on this Seattle defense. He'll go from the retirement home to the locker room to the grave against this defense. 13.5 is not enough points in this game. This offense, Sam Darnold, man, Minnesota, what were you thinking? Been playing phenomenal. He did have a 4-turnover game a couple of weeks ago, but I think he's just going to have one of those every several games. So he's got that out of his system. Man, there is no way Indianapolis is going to be competitive in this game. Seattle will be able to stack the box. They'll be able to bring 8 guys. They'll be able to cheat a safety up. They can play single high, man, all day long against this offense. I don't know if they'll score. But, I don't think they'll find the end zone. They may get a couple field goals, but Seattle's already had a couple shutouts this year too, so that's not out of the question either. 13.5 is not enough points. Honest to goodness, I'm not just sitting here running my mouth. I have laddered this up all the way to minus 19.5 because I think the Seahawks win this game by at least 3 touchdowns. It is not going to be pretty. Like I always tell everybody, it's your money. You do what you want. I just don't see a world, whether it's Riley Leonard, because he's banged up. Brett Rippon has been running the practice team, so he hasn't even been practicing his offense. And yes, I know Phillip Rivers played under Shane Steichen in San Diego because that's how damn long it's been since he's been in the league. He knows this offense, but Michael Jordan knows Phil Jackson's triangle offense too. But at 60 years old, Michael Jordan's not going to step on the basketball court and execute it. I just don't see any scenario that's is positive for the Colts. And if you go back and listen to what I said last week, and this is before Jones got hurt, and obviously that was a huge impact to this prediction. I couldn't have possibly known that because if I did, I would have bet it, and y'all wouldn't be seeing me right now. But I said this is going to be the start of the Colts' decline last week. Well, not for the reason that I thought, but it's definitely going to be the end of the line for the Colts. The Jags and the Texans are going to have to fight it out for the AFC South because the Colts are not going to be part of the conversation. So anyway, enough about that. Sorry. This blows my mind, y'all. I just cannot understand for the life of me that this was the best. Hell, Cam Newton would have been a better option for the Colts. I would have been a better, not really. I'm 10 years older than Phillip Rivers. I'm going to see my old ass out doing anything physically straining at this point in the game. Then we've got the Cowboys and the Vikings on Sunday night. Dallas is a 6.5-point favorite. There again, I don't think it's enough points. Dallas at home. This defense has vastly improved with the signing of Quinnen Williams. And Minnesota, again, what were you thinking letting Sam Darnold just walk? I don't know what they saw in J.J. McCarthy that made them believe that he was a viable starter in the NFL and could execute this offense, but they were wrong, pure and simple. This is just another mind-boggling decision that was made. I think, and I hate Dallas, but I think Dallas rolls the Vikings. 6.5 is not enough points. I like the Cowboys by at least 2 scores. And then the Monday night game is Pittsburgh and Miami. I don't really care. Screw both of them. Pittsburgh's the favorite, -3. I think Mike Tomlin I know he came out and had the little joke about been on the hot seat for 19 years, and that's not true. I mean, Pittsburgh doesn't change coaches. You have to either die or retire. They don't fire anybody. So, because they hire the right person. It's a good organization, but they're fighting for Mike Tomlin's job because the natives are getting restless. And I know Miami's shown some life here the past few weeks, but I think it's the end of the line. It's going to be cold. Miami's not great in cold weather. We know that. The Steelers, home favorites, -3. I like 2.5 a whole lot better than I like 3. But do with that what you will. I would buy that half point down. -2.5 would probably be somewhere in the -130 range, or you can drop that in a teaser as well. And get some value on that. And Aaron Rodgers, somehow, some way, is actually looking rejuvenated. He and DK Metcalf apparently have found something. And then the running game for the Steelers has been really good with Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, kind of a two-headed monster there. So do like the Steelers against the Dolphins. So that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. Do want to save some of that stuff that we talked about for Josh whenever he is back and up to snuff. So close it out with that. Again, thank you everyone that tunes in. I hope to continue to, at least through football season, do this once we kind of get out of football season. I'm more of a NBA prop better than I am sides or totals in basketball. So I just don't, it's too unpredictable, too volatile. So I pretty much stay away from it, but we'll probably in some way, shape, or form continue the Wednesday show for betting or props or just talking about the leagues, whatever it is, whatever it looks like, we'll figure it out. But again, thanks everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate all the comments. Of course, you can find me at Irish Hammer 71 on Twitter, YouTube channel, Dropping the Hammer podcast. Joshy Boy from Tennessee. Find him, follow him. And then, like I said, the Heavy Pour Sports group with my buddy T-Step, Rando, Selena. Be sure to follow them as well. They're pretty entertaining, even for Kentucky fans. I have to give the disclaimer. I can't have anybody thinking that I'm like a closet Wildcat fan or anything like that. So anyway, appreciate it. Love y'all. Take care. We will see you soon.